Never. Jackson trying to tell me that the Saints are going to win some games. I love it. Hey, as fans, we have to have hope. We are the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 1059 The Zone. Brought to you by Sound and Communications. Who do you call for your next video wall for your business, church, or school? SoundcomAV.com. They're the leader. They specialize in video walls, sound and communications. Your next video wall for your lobby, your conference room, your university, your school, SoundcomAV.com. SoundcomAV.com. We welcome in Mike D to the show, Mike Detillier, WWL Radio TV New Orleans. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. All right, Mike, LSU played about as bad as they can play on the offensive side of the football. What was your takeaway from them not being able to run the football at all against Ole Miss?
They haven't done it all year. It would have been surprising if all of a sudden that switch flipped. And they're just not real good up front. They're not a physical football team. They have finesse offensive line. It's been that way from the start with Brian Kelly, to be honest with you. The 2 years that they put up big numbers, that was a little bit of a pea and shell game because they had Jaden Daniels. Jaden kind of masked a little bit of the fact that they were not a real physical team up front, pushing people around in the running game. But Jaden took off, man. He scared the bejesus out of you every time he took off running, and players on that field too. He was special. But they're not real physical up front at all, and that's not a surprise to me. We've talked the entire off season about this offensive line, and that I had some major question marks. Well, they couldn't run the football well last year, and 4 of their 5 starting offensive linemen got drafted in the NFL. So why would anybody think all of a sudden that's going to change? If it's scheme, if it's coaching, whatever they're doing, it ain't working up front. And it's also sort of manufactured itself into the pass protect part of the game also. But I think it's obvious Garrett Nussmeier, something is wrong with him physically. He would not address that after the game. But after the second throw, I do pregame for LSU and with former LSU quarterback Herb Tyler, and we both texted each other at the same time. Something's wrong. He had nothing into those throws. And so you got that, and you got to give Pete Golding a lot of credit. I thought that scheme of what he did defensively really caused some issues for LSU. And Nussmeier seemed to have some difficulties throwing through the branches of the tree. Really did. And, defense played hard. And you're going to give up yards, and you're going to give up points to a lane coach team. That's just the way it is. But, this story of that game is Trinidad Chambliss. And that ain't even a debate. No one could have thought when he walked into that lineup as the starter that he would play at this level, and he has been unreal. He's really been the talk of the Southeast Conference of what he's been able to accomplish with a lot of new pieces, offensively for Ole Miss. So it's for LSU. I think the question marks about being able to run the football was there from year one and still there today.
Okay. Where does this leave kind of, the fan base has been waiting for this jump. They beat Clemson and people were excited and they should have been. And I know Clemson's not that good. And they beat Florida and Florida's really struggled. I hear Sloan as the OC is not the guy. Brad Davis as the O-line coach is not the guy. Is Brian Kelly having trouble staffing and getting coaches at the level that LSU needs to get to the college football playoff, Mike?
I think that's certainly in question offensively because he got it right on defense. I think what they have defensively with Blake Baker, he got the right guy there. Now, how long is it until Blake gets a head coaching job is going to be another question. But this seems to be a yearly deal with the offensive line. Play calling, and we all know that Joe Sloan's taken a lot of heat for this, but offense is Brian Kelly's baby. Okay? Brian got a lot to do with what's being called on the offensive side of the football. That's his wheelhouse. And it's been a little bit of again, I go back to Jaden Daniels. When Mike Denbrock was there before he left and went back to Notre Dame, I do believe that Jaden, that's what happens when you got great players. They mask a little bit of maybe some of the deficiencies that you have. And then when Joe got elevated to that spot, along with Cortez Hankton, their receivers coach, I wondered a little bit. Denbrock was a guy who had a lot of skins on the wall as a play caller. And I think that's the questionable thing, letting Denbrock walk away. That to me, there's a story behind the story with that, with Denbrock going back to Notre Dame. I think he wanted to have Joe Sloan as the co-offensive coordinator. Joe Sloan had deep ties to Underwood, the quarterback from Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
They were really tight. And I think he tried to make it work between the two. And Mike had that opportunity to run the show offensively at Notre Dame, and he left. So there's been some question marks since. But come on, an LSU team that can't run the football, that's unacceptable. Unacceptable, Bo. And they've had difficulties literally since the first year he's there. And again, that 2-year stretch with Daniels, okay, he gave you something that's rare.
Right.
And it's that ability to just take off running, and he all of a sudden you blink, and he's 30 yards downfield. Okay, that looks nice on the stat sheet. And it puts a lot of fear defensively to try to go up because Jaden was not only a great runner, but also he could throw the football so well. Nussbaum is not that type player. And I'm going to take up for Nuss on this. I think he's fighting through an injury, and he's doing the best he can. But when you come up short with those throws and they sort of nosing down, there is something upper body-wise with him that he wasn't like that a year ago. We didn't see that. We saw a little bit of erraticism in his throws, but he was never real short on those throws. He had Chris Hilton wide open, and he just missed on that. Even the touchdown play, it literally could have been an interception early on. It literally could. It just sort of bounced around, and, hey, I got it for a score. So, no, the fan base ain't happy, to answer your question. They're not real happy with Brian Kelly.
Mike Detillier, LSU insider on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. This is ESPN 105.9 The Zone. If you need a video wall for your business or school, soundcomav.com. Mike, what if they go 8-4? Are they just going to run it back with Brian Kelly, or are they going to demand changes on the coaching staff?
Yeah, I would think Brian Kelly's going to return, and he'll make changes on the coaching staff. Scott Woodward, the AD who hired him, he'll give him every opportunity, to try to succeed here. That I got no doubt about. They spent a lot of money, Bo. They spent a lot of money bringing Kelly in from Notre Dame, so he's going to give him every opportunity to make it work here in Baton Rouge. But the fan base and you can start to hear it more and more. They're not real happy. And if anybody thinks all of a sudden the running game's going to come back to them, it doesn't happen. If you don't have the elements there, I think it'll be erratic all year long, where you may have a game that looks real good, but it's not going to be a consistent running game. And which is so crazy, because when you think of Brian Kelly at Notre Dame, what did you think of? His ability to be real physical and run the football. Okay? A lot of times, I remember they played Alabama in a bowl game, and he came out in 13 personnel, which is, the 5 offensive linemen, 3 tight ends. I remember Nick Saban said, man, what's going on here? We got to get out of the defense we in. Brian Kelly is noted for running the football and multiple tight ends and playing that physical game, and just hasn't happened here.
All right, so you go 8-4. You go to a bowl game that they weren't even interested when they were winning 9 games, and so you go to a bowl game, Gator Bowl, Outback. These are things LSU's not interested in. But with the athletic director putting everything on the line and the big buyout, you what you're telling me is you see no path other than Brian Kelly coming back in 2026, right?
No path. Brian Kelly returns in 2026.
Okay.
All these people that they yahooing out about, he's gone and all this and that, they don't understand. With that type of contract, he's going to return, and Scott Woodward was going to give him every inch of the rope to get himself up. That's just the way it is, and it's just not at LSU. You see a lot of ADs like that. Would Jimbo Fisher have lasted as long at A&M without that contract? No, he wouldn't have lasted. But because of what he had on the line, he probably lasted a year longer. That is just what happens in college football today, or college athletics, I should say. It's just not in football. It's also in other sports. But 8-4, 9-3, that people don't want to accept that here in Baton Rouge. It's not acceptable. And trying to get into that top 12 to get into the playoffs, and this looked to be a team that could have done it. And listen, there's still a lot of season of football left.
Sure.
To play. And I'm not saying they're not going to be in there, but, it was just the way they lost. And you think about they couldn't run the football. Nussmeier looked bad. Their defense gave up a lot of yardage and a lot of plays to Ole Miss. They lost by less than a touchdown.
I mean, that's exactly the point.
Show you how talented they are.
Yes. They should have been down 24 points. And yet Ole Miss couldn't run away with the game. And I agree. I thought LSU played awful, especially on offense. But like you said, the defense got gashed. Now they did some things to where Ole Miss couldn't run away with it. This is going to be fascinating. Where is he right?
The other thing, Bo, I'm going to tell you, people don't realize how good Chambliss is. And I'm just telling you, that dude can play. When Ole Miss is going to get an L, in that column, it ain't going to be because of him. It's going to be because, they gave up a bunch of big plays defensively. It's not going to be because of Trinidad. To me, as LSU didn't play well, Ole Miss had a lot to do with that. I mean, the Rebels really played well. And I thought what Lane Kiffin had offensively was outstanding game plan against LSU. And I think what Pete Golding did defensively was excellent. But the story of that game came down to who had the better quarterback, and it wasn't close. The eye test told you the story. Trinidad Chambliss outplayed in big time Garrett Nussmeier. Again, everybody's fighting through something, if it's injuries or whatever. But Chambliss was the story of that football game.
This is how, let's see, Kentucky had run for 172 yards on the ground, Tulane 178, Georgia State 192. And
LSU didn't get 60.
That is unbelievable, Mike D.
No, I didn't think that all of a sudden they were going to be able to have, unless they hit a big play with a Harlem Berry, the freshman running back. I didn't think that they would have a ton of rushing yards. Where I thought they could take a little bit of an advantage is, okay, Ole Miss lost 4 defensive linemen to the NFL. That they could at least protect Nussmeier enough that he would hit some big plays downfield in the passing game. And he hit a couple, but it wasn't enough. And he missed on a couple, too. So, but again, it goes back to it's an old gambler's deal. Now, this is 5 straight years. The home team has won. 5 straight years. And it's unexplainable. How could Ole Miss have lost a year ago in Tiger Stadium? Walk out of that stadium, you say, how in the world could LSU have won this game? And I think for a lot of LSU fans, their deal is, how could we have lost to Ole Miss this year? Well, this was a little bit more obvious because of the fact I think the Rebels had the better quarterback that day. Chambliss is really has shown that he is a really good football player. And, boy, when they needed it, Bo, he made the play. When Trinidad was in a bit of a bind on third down, he made the play. And, man, that huge tight end, I'd love to have him on my team. Ooh-wee. You can't miss him. Can't miss him.
All right, so Mike Detillier, LSU insider on the Out of Bounds show. Who's your top 2 team? Now we're done with September. Next time we play will be October in a couple of days. Everybody, who are your top 2 or 3 teams in the SEC after September?
Whoa, I think it's all fluid, but I think Texas A&M certainly deserves a lot of accolades for what Elko has been able to do, and it's not all about defense. They got some weapons on the offensive side to football. So I think certainly A&M comes to mind real quickly on how good they can be. And listen, they got a 0 in the other column. It's Ole Miss. It's Texas A&M and Ole Miss.
Where would you put Bama after their win at Georgia?
I think that they righted the ship after a difficult first game against Florida State. And now you got a quarterback with some experience. And, him and I spent some time together at the Manning camp, Ty, and, I just had a feeling that he was going to be a good player in this league. Man, he's motivated, he's smart, he's talented. He's really good in that short intermediate part of the field, which they're going to do. They got to tighten up some stuff defensively, so you probably have to put them right now in the 3 spot. That's a big win against Georgia in their backyard with a lot on the line, a lot of pressure, and every time Georgia made a bit of a run, Bama slammed the door. So you'd have to put Bama in that 3 spot.
Okay, yeah, and then Georgia's win at Tennessee, or I think we've just kind of got a cluster of teams here that, because Bama's still undefeated in league play, as you know. We've got a cluster of teams here that there's not really a penny's worth of difference, Mike, up top.
Ain't much difference. And everybody's got a hole. Everybody's got a deficiency somewhere along the line. Listen, Tennessee was lucky this week. I mean, listen, they won, and that's all that matters. But I thought they were fortunate to beat State. Man, State gave them everything they wanted in that football game. But, hey, listen, this is all about W's. This is a bottom line business. And you can say, well, you can't look at it like pro football. Well, yes, you can today.
Yeah.
Everybody's getting paid. So it is a bottom line business. But, you know what, man, Josh has got some deficiencies on the defensive side. You can see with Tennessee that they're gonna be in shootouts in most games. The most complete team would seem to be A&M for me. And we didn't even talk about Texas. I think Texas defensively is a good football team, and they got talent. Offensively, though, you got to become a better team in the passing game, and all that's kind of on the right arm of Arch Manning.
What A&M's interesting. I'm not sold totally on Marcel Reed yet, but you're right. They're playing good football, and they have 2 good wins at Notre Dame and 1 at Auburn. Auburn may not be winning the games they want, but you could argue they got robbed at Oklahoma and still played physical and well on defense and played physical and well in defense against A&M. They can't get it right on offense with Jackson Arnold and Freeze, which is I never saw coming with Freeze. But are you sold on Marcel Reed, or do you need to see a little bit more, Mike D?
I've seen enough. He's one hell of a player. Man, he gives you a dimension there as a runner, and he's become a much more efficient downfield passer. So I'm sold on him. I really am. And Moss, a Louisiana guy from the Baton Rouge area, a big heavy-duty runner, got hurt late last year and missed the latter part of the year. But, you know, Elko's defense will play much better, much, much better. You know, we hadn't talked about it, and I think only because you think without John Mateer that Oklahoma is out of the question. And can they survive this run without Mateer? Because, man, he looked to be a guy, the way he was playing, that he was going to be in New York in December, and he may be grabbing that Heisman. He was really playing extremely well. And he reminds me so much of another former Oklahoma quarterback, Baker Mayfield.
Ooh.
That's who he reminds me of. Okay, you say, well, okay, he's not real big. He doesn't have a super strong arm. He's not a speedster taking off with the football. You know what he does? Wins.
Yeah, he does.
Now, can they get through that stretch without him in the lineup? Because defensively, I think they can match up really well in the SEC. They got talent, and they got some talent depth defensively.
Mike Detillier, LSU Insider. We'll hit the Saints next week, maybe, on the Out of Bounds show. Thanks, Mike D. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Bo.
At Mike Detillier. God, that flew by. At Mike Detillier on Twitter. Mike D, WWL Radio TV New Orleans. Your next video wall for your business, your school, your office. SoundCom, AV.com, Sound and Communications.